All right, perfect. Can you put us in 4x4s?
I will.
4x4, 2x2s. Hi, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. It's so good to see you guys on Air Meet again. Timur, Philip, and Sun. How are you guys doing?
Hi.
Good. Perfect.
Doing great.
Nice. I love it. All right. Well, welcome back to people who have been part of this series so far in 2021. Welcome all to our first timer guest. And if you're watching this recording, we really hope that you enjoy. You're in for a treat. Tonight, we're talking about the impossible conversation of the future, because we just love to think about it, talk about it, and debate it. So tonight's chat is going to go on for about 40 minutes. At around the 45 minute mark, I'm going to put the audience and the speakers to your smaller tables. The reason we do this on AirMeet is because we genuinely miss getting in person so much, and putting you guys on these smaller, intimate conversational tables is one of the ways we get to relive that magic. In addition to getting your comments, your questions, what you disagree with the speakers with, what you agree with them on, put that all in the chat. For your question in the chat, I'm going to help moderate that throughout this.
So do we have a battle here, or?
Well, people have some strong convictions about the future. We want you to bring that forward just in case.
Cool.
To talk about who's sponsoring tonight's event with their energy, attention, and time, Seoul Startups. I'm going to invite Marta over here to tell you guys a little bit about who we are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Martha, and I'm the catalyst behind Seoul Startups. It's amazing to see you all here today. We are actually dialing from Jeju, so we have a really big project going on, mapping the ecosystem, showing everyone that it's not only about Seoul, but it's also about other parts of Korea when it comes to startups. Check out the link in your chat box right now. We are the biggest international startup community here in Korea, with over 2,000 members and growing, working with different ecosystem players to make this startup scene global and international. So enjoy the show, and we will make it the most amazing experience for you ever.
Marta does not drink coffee, guys. That is natural enthusiasm and passion for you, served for So with us is three speakers. I'm going to run through a very basic introduction. They're going to tell more about their background, their stories, and their answers. But we have Philip Lee, founder of Pickool, which is a curation of analysis and reports, with the audience being international, but a lot of the information based here in Korea. He's been a writer since his college days. We have Sun Choi with Mind the Bridge, an advisor to larger companies who are interested in spearheading innovation, so they leverage startups for that. He works out of Busan, but has been in Japan and Canada, also global experience. And then Timur Daudpota, a food connoisseur, a speaker, he's with 500 startups, a global mentor, and an angel investor. So welcome, gentlemen. We're so thrilled you're on the floor with us today. I'm going to start with the first gen. What's getting you excited in Korea, in your world, in this rest of the year and into next?
Who should speak first?
Whoever wants to.
Okay.
You want to take this one?
Sure. I mean, I can talk a lot of things, but since you mentioned about working with large corporates, so in Korea yet we don't have a client from large corporates, but we do have a lot of large corporate clients around the world. And I see the trend. I'm trying to bring large corporates from outside to meet with Korean startups recently. So in a little bit of promotion, at the end of the June, there is a next rise with Kita and KDB.
What is Kita?
IDB. Kita is a Korea International Trade Agency or association. I think it's called 한국무역협회 in Korean. So they every year they run this startup related event, large event, one of the largest events in Korea for startups, and Mind the Bridge will be part of them. So we have this event called Scale Up Summit. So we do this quarterly in different regions, but this June we will do it in Korea with Next Rise. And we're going to bring several executives from large corporates. from SAP, for example. And about the trend, I'll go back to the trends. So about the trend, large corporates, they are looking for a lot of interesting tech startups around the world, because as you know, large corporates, they are too big. They are not sufficient or efficient in working effectively, because they have to go through all the, the corporate structure, organizational structures and stuff. So that's why there's a lot of room for startup to disrupt the market. So a lot of large corporates, they tend to work with small startups. So they look, of course, they love Silicon Valley startups, but they also look for startups in different regions. And definitely Korea is growing in startup ecosystem. So we want to bring them to Korea, and so Korean startups can, expose to the other global environment. Maybe they can get some partnership, investment, acquisition in the future.
Okay, so what excites you are these massive companies abroad hoping to partner with younger, more efficient, fast-moving, higher energy Korean startups.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, John.
Thank you.
Philip, do you want to go next?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'll go. So what excites me about Korea? So if you're looking into the Korean startup community, right, it's growing every year. And then over $500 million a year has gone into like funding late stage startup companies. And there's a lot of potential, right? So especially like we know like it's leading in blockchain. Korea is leading in fintech, a lot of biotech, IoT. And let's not forget Korean entertainment, right? Which has the like really big growth. So let's talk about BTS, right? So the BTS's holding company went IPO this year and went out and bought Scooter Braun's company, which manages Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande. And I'm going to see a lot of trend now where Korean companies are going to go IPO, raise a lot of capital, and then go out, buy these Western and Eastern companies. It's going to be exactly like how China was doing, where all the Chinese made a lot of money, then went out and bought out other American brands. And we're going to see a big shift in this area.
Thanks so much, Tamer. People, it sounds like they're gaining both influence and capital here first, allowing them to make those purchases abroad.
Yep, exactly.
Got
Especially
it.
Korean companies, yeah.
Thank you so much. Philip, from where you are, you're writing about it, curating the information. What's it look like from where you sit there?
Well, actually, the startup has a big goal to change the world and solving the problem. But the other goal is that they want to be the rocket like the Coupang listed on NYSE last month. So I think I'm writing recent tech and usually on the late stage startups in South Korean tech ecosystem. And what I feel from the visitors and unique visitors in my website is that the people in outside, especially in the east coast of US, like New York or Boston or west coast, of course, they are quite interested in South Korean startups. And also the South Korean of course, Coupang is it's headquartered in Delaware, United States, and most of the investors are from US, but the other companies like Curly or even Yanorja, they are considering to list their stocks in US right now. So that's right now happening in this year. And the startup boom, of recent startup boom started around 2013 to 2014 from the last regime of the South Korea as the creative economy. And I think the fruits are now hanging on the tree right now. And according to Korea Exchange, KRX, the newly listed stock from this year, from January to May, was totally 11 companies were newly listed in KOSPI and KOSDAQ. And even last month, in April, the application has been filed 19 companies, and 19 companies even 19 companies this month. So what's happening now in South Korea is that big company and the things that a lot of companies, which is right now we are calling as unicorn or almost unicorn status, like Krafton will or Yanorja or these companies will go public this year. And the other thing is that one of the big three IT companies, Naver, Kakao, or Coupon, for example, Naver and Kakao, they are investing a lot of money in the startup companies in South Korea or outside Korea in Southeast Asia. For example, Naver invested one of the biggest media company called Amtech in Indonesia yesterday with 150 million US dollar. And today, Korea Economic Daily reported that one of the hot fashion e-commerce platform, Zigzag, was valued around 1 billion US dollar. And Kakao is considering to acquire them and to announce it to public next week. So things like that is making a virtuous cycle within the ecosystem. And for that, most of the pattern was that big company was trying to copy the startup products and resemble that and killing the business model of the startups. But right now, we're going to a virtuous and really great, healthier ecosystem. And that really excited me this year in 2021. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Philip. Do you think that we're going to see more people IPO in next year, 2022? Or do you feel like more founders will want to just stay either bootstrapped or funded and keep private? What's your gut?
Well, I think more people will go to IPO because when in old Korean words, what they say is that when the water comes in, you have to sail out to the sea. So I think this is a great time for companies going IPO, and especially the interest rate is quite low, and there are a lot of money in the market. And that's one of the reasons why more companies are more comfortable and going public and getting the money from the stock market. So I am really positive in that sense.
Timur and Sun, do you guys have a take on that? Do you see more companies going public, or do you feel like they're going to hang on tight, stay private longer?
No, I think a lot of the companies did really smart move, right? It's like, is that what I said? Like a lot of companies in Korea will go IPO. They will like go overseas, start acquiring different brands, like as Philip mentioned, right? The companies are going IPO. And people who benefited, a lot of companies who had an uptake during COVID time. So like, let's say like Coupang or like mass manufacturers, this is the right time for them to go IPO because their profits are at all-time high. So if they go in right now during the COVID, when they see that boom, this is a perfect time. So yeah, I agree with what Philip's saying.
Yeah, same from my side too. So in my opinion, so IPO is just one of the exit strategy, and the other one is definitely acquisition. So in Korea, we all know that IPO is easier. So that's why a lot of people from Korea, Korean startups, they go IPO in Korea. But actually, that doesn't give a lot of fortune to the team or to the founders. Of course, there are several, but most of the time, no. In my opinion, definitely one of the exit strategy, the startups should look into going global for global IPO if it is possible, or acquisition. Because when we compare the average amount of selling the company to a larger company, which is acquisition, when you compare it with Korea and the US, it's 44 times higher in case of US, and for IPO is 66 times higher in the US. So definitely, of course, it's not easy. But it's definitely worth it. And since you are startup founders, it is your capability to solve those kind of hurdles or the problems, right?
Right, absolutely. So we're in agreement about, in a couple of years getting some more shareholders and early companies. When companies do go IPO, what industries are you expecting to hear a lot from? Like which ones do you think will be hot in about 5 years? Startups in what verticals?
Any of you guys? Well, I think I can cover this one. We know startups in like who are assisting the fourth industrial revolution, right? So companies that are leading the way in AI, big data, robotics, IoT, crypto, blockchain. These are the companies in the next 5 years. We're going to see a whole lot of surge that's going to happen. We started off with the first industrial revolution when the steam engines came in. The second one was like oil, electricity. The third one was digital revolution, and we're at the fourth one right now.
Right.
And we can see by the Korean government's initiative where they're like pushing for smart cities, and a lot of initiatives are pushing for everything needs to be connected. The trend's going to rise. And I've seen a lot of my friends get government contracts for these smart places. So this is going to be a big play in the next 5 years.
Next, I'll go next. So from my side, I'll say smart city related industries or verticals. So smart city
related.
Yeah, because smart city is such a large the view. So within smart city, you have to, there is an infrastructure that we have to disrupt, and also sustainability in terms of the energy, it should be disrupted. And when we think about the energy itself, we have to generate the energy in a eco-friendly way, and we have to store it in an efficient, and we have to distribute it in an efficient way.
When you're talking about energy, you're referring to like electricity, water?
Yeah. So I'm referring the energy, the whole energy itself. So now we use a lot of gas, foils and stuff, but as we know, I think everyone knows that each country now are dedicating their budgets into eco-friendly the regimes or the policies. So when we think of that, a lot of things will move to electronics. So electronics is becoming I'm just throwing out just a lot of things. So electricity is becoming a money, but because when we think about the bitcoins, yes, it is coming from the electricity too. So anyways, sorry, but I cannot close, but that's what I have in my mind.
So I go between the US and Korea, and in the US, Tesla probably takes the most popular car for eco-friendliness. But then in Korea, I see that there's a similar Hyundai version to a Tesla. Korea does a far better job of helping the environment than the US right now, in my personal opinion. But I'm hoping to see more cars also compete with Tesla in the US, potentially. No one can replace Elon Musk, personally. Products should have competition to make them the best product. So I love that. All right, Philip, what about you? What industry is going to be hot in 5 years?
Well, I think what kind of perspective you have on the market. I mean, there is government in one hand, and one is private, and one here is B2B, whether it's B2C. And regarding the government or regulation, we have president election. You mean in 5 years in Korea, right? So we have president election next year, and there will be some kind of change if the regime change, or if this regime goes on, we don't know. So it depends whether it's Republican or Democratic in US. It's like here in South Korea. So if I just focus on private sector and regarding the B2C and where the people are trying to convert from the where the disruptors are working and where the regulations are not acting strictly, I feel that South Korea is one of the country where the commerce migration rate from offline to online is the fastest in the world. And second is that according to IHS report, will be the number 3 largest e-commerce nation in the world after China and US. Right now, we are in the 5th position. So there will be a lot of players like Coop in the future. And it's actually happening like Zigzag or Mushinza or Brandy. Those fashion-related e-commerce are coming up and they are really getting big. So there will be a big opportunity regarding cost in my sense. And second one is that I think the mobility itself will be the major, and the mobility related like autonomous driving technology and the mobility as a service, the last mile service for car sharing and also car hiring. It will be really hot business in South Korea because as you guys all know that Uber made a joint venture company with one of the largest company in South Korea, SK Telecom. So there will be founded ecosystem and startups there. And also one of the big 3 IT companies, Kakao's affiliate of the mobility service, Kakao Mobility got the investment from Google International. And also there is a Seoul Car and have the car hiring business. Those big 3 will get the market and migrate the org offline to online and making something innovative. And I feel that 5 years is quite short. For example, my father is late 60, and for him to use the service as mobility as a service, that means that becomes major. So that's why I see commerce and mobility will be the major in 5 years. After 5 years, if I see really conservatively, of course, in that behind sense, there will be AIs and big data and quantum computing and DLP, something like that. But from the citizen's perspective and the perspective, the guys who did not study engineer, I feel that commerce or mobility will be the majority industry and really getting hot in 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate this. I know we got some people who are investors in the audience, people with pockets. So hearing e-commerce and mobility, Sun talking about clean energy, and Timur mentioned the Internet of Things, crypto, and big data. Let's get very focused now on people, on founders. So the best startup founders, they live in the future, right? They see something in the future and they build what's missing to fulfill the need today. Talking about behaviors, perspectives, for the founders in the audience today, what are ways you would guide them to prepare them for the future? What can they do to best position themselves you see would be successful? And I don't know if every founder wants to go IPO, if they see that as success, but just any guidance from you guys as founders yourselves. You guys talk to founders, you hear their pitches.
So I can talk about this, right? So as founders, right, what you work on, and it makes a huge difference, right? It's really important, the things and the issues you're working on will make things a lot easier. It will make a huge difference, right? So most people, I think when they come up with the idea, they don't really take enough time to consider what they're working on. A lot of the people jump in without realizing, how they're gonna make their part of my work, they're gonna make their fuck you money, right? So fuck you money is at least $20 million you need to have in your bank account that will last you, not only you and your family, all right, so but the coming generation. And I'll see founders pushing away all their effort, and in order for you to even make that return, your company needs to be worth at least $100 million or more. Or if you need to walk out with $5 million, you put 10 years into a product or a company. You need to know the math behind this, and put more effort into it. So I'll give you an example of a company I started. I started a company when Snapchat was taking off like a rocket ship. All the VCs wanted to be on the startup, and all the biggest publishers like BBC, CNN wanted to be on the platform. And I saw a problem, which was selected publishers only got the privileges to be on Snapchat, to upload high quality content onto the platform, while everybody else, like us, like you and me, and even big brands, we're stuck to their cell phone camera. We all know we can't produce high quality content from our cell phone. And if you had an Android device, it was even worse because Android devices would not use cameras. They will just record the screen. And, this was the issue.
Is
So
this
what
Blurb is?
Yeah, this was early stories of Blurbus. So we ended up hacking Snap and allowed some of the biggest publishers in the world to directly edit content and push it through our platform. And we rode the wave of Snapchat. And let me tell you, it made stuff so much easier. All I had to do is we are working on Snapchat to all the publishers, and it will get a reply within our email on this very same day. And because we were the only ones doing it, we could charge high prices, even though the platform was really buggy. As long as you're solving a real problem, it makes things really easier. And what happened next was really remarkable. All the VCs wanted to fund this. We got into every accelerator that we applied to, right? And there's a saying that goes, right? When you're looking for money, right, you'll get advice, and when you're looking for advice, you'll get money. But it's just funny, right? So I, along with my team, we rode the wave to the top. And if you look at histories of how things are made, let's past every decade, right? All the kings are made by riding a wave. When the personal computer revolution happened, we saw the birth of Apple and Microsoft. When the dot-com boom happened, right? We saw the birth of companies like Amazon, Google, eBay. When we saw app marketplace was introduced, right? We saw the boom of products like Snapchat, Instagram, Uber. Learn to ride the waves, take a look at emerging markets, and avoid declining industries at all costs.
There's always an aspect of timing and luck that comes into anything that starts, right? Like Jobs had to have been around and met Steve Wozniak, and Bill Gates had to be at a school where that was available. But I think what's important here, what it sounds like you're saying, is take notice, keep yours perked, but also listen to that intuition, almost as you did when you saw there was a need for Snapchat. People make low quality videos. I think I'm capable of creating this. Did you know it would raise money? You can't.
You don't know, but if you are smart enough, right? You don't have to be an original thinker. You can be a really good copier too. If you can learn to copy what successful people are doing, for example, if time is happening somewhere else in the States, you can really take over another region and create the same thing and expect the same amount of funding. So if you learn to be a really good copier and seeing what are the best people in the world are doing, what are their good habits and what are the bad habits, and avoid their bad and do the good, that will take you a long way. And that's what I've done as well. Copy the best among the best, study them and replicate what they're doing. That will take you a long way.
All right, I'm gonna give the Phil and Son, but real quick, Timur, who's the #1 person you love to copy today?
I think Noel Rakant is one of the guys I'm trying to be more like.
Oh, Naval, the Twitter philosopher.
Twitter philosopher.
Oh, damn, that's awesome. You guys, we should drop Naval's Twitter handle. It's @Naval. Fantastic guy. He hops on Clubhouse spontaneously, and the room is maxed out. But all right, Phil and Son, what can founders do today to position themselves for the future? What do you think?
Well, if I understood the questions right, so you are asking me to talk about the behavior of the founders, right?
Right, the behavior or the perspective. If your niece came to you today and asked you, dear uncle, I want to start a company in 5 years, what should I make sure I am well positioned for?
Well, I was mostly working in big companies about my 30 years of career in telecommunication company and global software company and global research company. And my guess is that I founded this company 10 months ago, and I feel that the founder should have really clear vision and his core to what he's doing. It's like I feel like every day I feel like I'm walking in the in big fields in Scotland, West Highland way, and at that time in my last day it was like a trip that the GPS is not working and my battery is gone and no sign on my iPhone, and it was something like that. So the founder should have a clear goal and what he or she should make and what he or she should change or to try to solve the problem inside there. My experience, and I fully agree on Timur's. Did I pronounce correct? Timur's model that copying is the best. I mean, even I think that the best copying is the mother of a big creation. Think what
let's change the word into benchmarking.
Yeah, benchmarking. Yeah, thank you. So benchmarking is really great because coupon benchmark Amazon and Neighbor is benchmarking the Alibaba model, and Kakao example is benchmarking Tencent model. So, I mean, these guys are even benchmarking. The Amazon is benchmarked from China, so it should be open, not just inside something perspective, but trying to look who is doing better than me and who is doing better than me with a clear goal what he or she should do within 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years. Yeah, that's my answer. And strong willingness, and also has to be really stay foolish and stay hungry and stay foolish. Yeah.
Stay hungry, stay foolish. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah.
Thanks. I mean, since Tim and Philip addressed a lot of great part of the mindset of the startup founders, the other thing that maybe that I can address is I see a lot of Korean founders or other founders being too cautious about sharing their ideas. But actually, not you have to know. Actually, not a lot of people are interested in copying your product. So please share and get feedback and do lean things. By doing it, you have to fail and you will learn from it. So I'll say be a smart executor. Yeah, not just an executor, not just being smart, but being a smart executor. The mindset I think the the founders should have.
I like what you said about the ideas. I read somewhere that if you are afraid of sharing your idea, what that translates to is that you are confident that you think you can't come up with another idea, like as if there's limited ideas in this world, which there are not. And I also believe in something called idea sex. It's like when you have an idea and someone else shares their idea, oftentimes like the creativity can happen. You can think of something better together, and birth of a new idea for a potential startup. So I appreciate that. And there was something I think Philip you had said about founders. I'm drawing a blank now, but it was around founders getting to ask for advice or get money. But when you ask for money, you get for what's that humor? I love that too. What founders always think is like, you cannot take action until you have advice, when actually it's like you will get more advice after you've taken action. You'll get feedback, which is way more valuable than advice for something ephemeral. So I guess the message here, guys, get started, get launched, and then get feedback. It's obviously impossible to predict the future. So tonight's conversation is all lightheartedness. It's us looking at what we have today, thinking of where it'll go tomorrow and years ahead. A question from the audience as we talked about IPOs earlier in tonight's conversation. From Pauline, she's curious to know about early stage ventures. Oftentimes in Europe, French startups will stay bootstrapped, not accepting money from external funding. However, do you see companies like that in Korea also staying bootstrapped? Or do you feel like they want money earlier?
I think it's more of whenever you're starting something, you need to have some type of skin in the game. Is like whether your own money or having your friends and family money. The idea and the notion of like so let's talk about this, right? So whenever you start a company, all it is it's assumption, and all you're doing is testing out that assumption. right? Is it gonna work or is it not gonna work? And that's the point where you in order to test out that assumption, you should be using your own money to figure out if that idea is even plausible. And the only way to figure out if that idea is plausible is by going out and talking to customers and getting their feedback and iterating until something sticks and works. And the only way to figure out if something sticks and works is either customer is going to pay for it or not, right? So if this mask, I pay $200 for this mask, right? The value of this mask is going to be $200. And where the money comes in after a finite amount of time, or in your startup, once you have figured out, every nooks and crannies, you can scale, that's when you go out and go raise funding. So there is no like either I have to go bootstrapped or whatever. It's just, at what stage and at what point you are to take those necessary steps.
Thank you so much, Timur. I'm going to go on to the next question here. It is, what role do you see young founders playing in the future of South Korean startups? And by young founders, they mean age-wise, like if they're in their teens. Because I feel like if you think about when we grew up versus when teens are now growing up, they can probably start companies a lot earlier than maybe we could, considering what's at their fingertips. So what's your gut on that with teen founders?
I will answer that. About teen founders, yes. Now, unlike when I was young, I will not reveal my age, but the teenagers now, I know they study codings, and it's going to be so easy for them to make something right away. So yes, definitely. I think there can be, more quantity of the people who starts a startup, and that leads to quantity. When you have a lot of quantity, when we think about the numbers, maybe 1% will be successful, and if you see 1% from the 100, or if you see a 1% from the 1 million, is totally different, right? So I think when we see more teenagers learning codings and being more keen to digital, I believe they can build more something interesting. But of course, in the other hand, I also believe there are some limits of understanding the market. For example, they will not be able to create a SaaS product, enterprise SaaS product, because they don't have any experience on that. They can make social medias like Facebook, etc. So there can be pros and cons, but in terms of the quantity, I believe yes, the teenagers will lead the number of the startups in Korea.
There's always someone coming for your spot, guys. And now they're coming and they've got all this. They're coming on apps like Roblox. They're coming on apps that move a lot faster than what we had. I played with mud and sticks and my imaginary friends in the sun. So at least I have that behind me. Another question from the audience before we go into breakout rooms from Norbert. I don't know what WEF stands for. The WEF,
World Economic Fund.
The World Economic Fund Gender Gap Report recently released that Korea is position number 102. What measures are being taken to address that? If you guys know. That's a loaded question. I feel like I'm asking the press over here.
I think I will answer for that. Timo, will you go first?
No, I don't. I was gonna say I don't think I have the capabilities of answering that question.
Well, yesterday we had the election, and contrast to last year, the 20s younger generation gave 80% to agree on the conservative side. Last year it was about 50-50, but the percentage changed a lot. And one of the reasons why is that we see from the press and the audience, what people are saying is that the man thinks that from the gender perspective, they are right now getting the gap. So they just show the voting power. That was one of the reasons. But in others, the reason why this government has funded on a lot of the gender gap to reduce the gender gap was that there is actually a glass ceiling exists for the women's and especially for the startup foundings in the country compared with other European countries or even with the US. So it's really heavy question from my from heavy. It is really heavy question, and it is quite heavy answer to give it on a fireside chat. But from my perspective, there is gap, but I think the society and the systemically we're trying to fix that up. And compare with 10 years or 20 years, the system or trying to lessen the gender gap is has been evolved from South Korean perspective. But to be honest and to be frankly, we have gaps right now, but we have really good women founders like Sophie Kim of the Market Cully or other women founders who are working here in this accelerator town where I work here in Seoul. So yeah, that's the answer I would like to give. And things are evolving, and that's the history, and that's the moment that we're living in right now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And just for some context for people, so Korea is at 102 out of 153. So it's not looking too good. And my gut, being Korean, is also like there's a cultural part to that door to play. We're hoping to get up there to improve that, especially with all three of these gentlemen on the call helping, global markets penetrate the Korean one. We are going to go into smaller breakout tables. I'm going to have Marta come back to the stage that can tell you what you will do. Do not dial off. Hang on one sec.
Well, by coming to the stage, scooting over. Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed our fireside chat, but this is not over. Our speakers will now go to their little private table that you probably saw in the lounge. So if you want to chat more intimately with them, ask them direct questions about what they do, what they think about different topics, feel free to jump into the tables. The tables have only 8 seats. That's the maximum we can set up here. So once you've fulfilled your question asking, please give up the seat for whoever else might be waiting to get that seat to the given speaker, and jump to one of the water cooler tables and talk with people like myself. So see you in a few. Bye.
All right, speakers, we're going to hop over to the tables. Guys, remember, there is none of that can't sit with us energy here, okay? If you want to rotate, if you want to talk to each other, I'll see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.